Hello YouTube and welcome to another Wildgate video. Today is a big day. We've got the launch patch notes. So I've already skimmed through these. I'm going to pull out all the important information that you care about around balance. I'll touch on everything, but I'm going to kind of skim through the cosmetic stuff, the stuff that's not super important. If you really care about these notes, you can find them all in the Discord down below, which is a public Discord we've set up. If you're looking for other crewmates and stuff like that, that's a good place to just kind of socialize and, link up and find people that are a little bit more competitive on the Wildgate side. So let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about the different progression paths that they've set up. We're going to be talking about the balance changes to prospectors and ships, including the weapon changes to the AIM-E, the rock, and the laser ram, and a new scrap crate system that was introduced to the game or is being introduced with launch. Up first, the developers really wanted to touch on the fact that they listened to the community. The community has overwhelmingly said that skill expression should be more important and things like auto aim should be kind of tuned down, and they've made those changes, and we'll talk about them down in the list. There's a bunch of new progression paths for players outside of the game, including player cards, titles, a new infamy system, kill streaks, and goals. All of that stuff exists outside of the game, including the scrap crate system. It kind of dips in both. You do it in-game and out of the game, but there's a lot of new progression paths. I'm not going to read them, and I'm not going to go through them all in detail. Once you log into the game, this will all become pretty self-evident. The scrap crates, though, these are items that award your crew with a cosmetic item at the end of the match. So these scrap crates are kind of like loot boxes, but not actually loot boxes because you don't have to buy them. They're found randomly, and importantly, there is no randomness. They go in a progression order, so who knows what's going to be at the end of the scrap crate progression tree. Maybe it'll be something really cool, and we just got to play to find out. The in-game store is being added. Everybody kind of knew that was coming. They've made little changes to different game modes, like the Wildgate is now going to be revealed to everybody once it goes live. Not a big deal, but kind of nice. The points of interest. This one is interesting. The monolith entrance can spawn far away from the monolith. It doesn't say how far, but it would be potentially interesting to be able to enter the monolith from a different part of the map. The monolith, for those that don't know, is often where the artifact spawns. Not always, but often, and it leads to a large PvE, I call it a slog, where you got to go through a lot of PvE content to be able to get the artifact out to your ship. This could potentially introduce players jumping in to interrupt that PvE moment. The vault now spawns closer to the middle of the map. This is a good change overall. This just means that if you get a vault key, you know that you generally have to go towards the middle of the map to get value from it. The Cosmic Storm, the damage to it was increased dramatically to both players and ships. So the Storm Shield, which felt kind of useless in the previous playtest, it now has value. If you want to go through these, you're going to have that Storm Shield. It's going to make it really difficult to kind of just fly through and get into the monolith without having a Storm Shield. Sal was slightly buffed. Sal's recyclability no longer has a delay, no more standing there and waiting. Ships or items just pop out instantly once they've been recycled. A note here, the developers really felt that crews, specifically pilots, were a little bit overwhelmed with boarders, especially teams that continuously board. They felt like they were constantly being attacked and they couldn't get on the helm to fly. So they made a pretty big change to the glass right in front of the pilot only. All the other windows remain the same, but the pilot's glass was buffed to 1,000 health. 1,000 health is quite a bit. For those that don't know, Ion's melee damage does 100 damage per hit, which means that if Ion was to come aboard and break glass to shoot up the pilot, he would have to hit the glass 10 times to be able to shoot out the pilot. That is a huge nerf to Ion indirectly and a huge nerf to the boarding of the game. The overall change I'm kind of okay with. We need to test it to see how it works, and you'll see some changes down to the drill charges below that would make this, it's still tenable if you have a drill charge to be able to break that and shoot at the pilot, but this is a pretty big change to the overall balance and the flow of combat, because going to the helm and breaking the glass and putting the ship in park was a pretty big play, and it was often the first thing that boarders would go try and do, so this is a pretty big change here. The rear camera is now a toggle, and you can still drive the ship while you're in the rear camera, kind of useful for pilots. And ships now turn and slightly accelerate faster, all of that's just a good thing. This is a pretty big change that I'm not super happy with. The shield ship shields are being changed. Ship shield regeneration rate is increased to 25 health per second. It was 10 health per second, which sounds okay, but the ship panel going down was, for a panel to come back, it was increased from 45 seconds to 1 minute. Now, I think that shields were pretty weak, and shields did need a buff. I agree with the first point in this list, but the second point in the list means that it's going to be harder for a panel to come back. And if I remember back to the playtests, shields went down really quickly. It took 1 to 2 shots from a turret to knock a panel out. So if you're telling me that now it's going to be an entire minute before those panels come back, I'm going to see a lot more people just not even bothering with shields most of the time. They might have shields up for 1, maybe 2 volleys max, and then they're going shields down to get their engines powered up, and they're not even going to bother turning them back on, because a full minute to get those panels back up is a long time. I would love to see that second bullet point just kind of scrapped. Ship layout. Some pretty big changes to the different health on the ships. The Hunter, which is the starter ship, was increased to 90. It was 80. The Privateer got a nerf. I think the Privateer is terrible. A lot of people disagree, but the Privateer lost 20 health. The Bastion lost 10 health. And the Scout, which was considered to be the best ship in the game, got a nerf going from 90 health to 80 health. I still think it's probably the best ship in the game. One small change, the charging stations to replenish your equipment were moved to the outer doors, closer to the doors on the Scout, no longer right next to the pilot. And then ship interactions, time between ship hardpoints was increased to 3 seconds. It was 2 seconds. So putting an item in or taking an item out, so stealing a hardpoint or even just moving it around your ship, now takes 1/3 longer, which is a direct nerf to boarding parties again, and it's just going to slow down the overall pace of the game. I don't know if this was necessary. Stealing components happens somewhat regularly, but I attribute a lot of that to just the game being new and people not knowing how to defend against boarding. When you, at least personally, when I would fight a competent team, it got substantially harder to actually board them and then kill them and then steal an item. This nerf doesn't necessarily seem appropriate. I would like to see maybe a 1 second increase to teleporting home while you're on an enemy ship instead of 1 more second to remove the item out of the wall. They did also nerf teleporting home, and I'll talk about that here in a second. The secure door health was increased to 400, another direct nerf to Ion and boarding. I agree with this change, actually. The secure door didn't really feel like it added much benefit. It took 2 hits and then they were in. So the breach charge still definitely blows these doors open, and Ion just now has to spend twice as long hitting the door before he's allowed in. It just makes secure doors a little bit more valuable and a lot less useless. I do think that maybe 300 health would be a comfortable middle ground. 400 seems a little bit overkill, but we'll see. We'll have to play it and see how it goes. The reactor overload now spawns fires every 3 seconds instead of 5 seconds. So this is one of the suggestions that I had made in my video. Overloading a reactor was not very powerful, not very beneficial. Oftentimes you'd have to babysit it for what felt like way too long to be able to do any damage to a ship. Now it's a pretty substantial increase. There's going to be a lot more fire starting in the ship if they don't come over and turn the reactor off. Big changes. This is probably what most people care about the most. Big changes to the AIM-E. The AIM-E has gotten huge nerfs. The damage per shot was reduced from 15 to 10. The ammo in the magazine was reduced from 45 to 30. The clips, you actually got more ammo to compensate for what I imagine is less ammo per magazine. It has increased by 2, and big news here is the auto-locking homing reduction was reduced by 50%. I'm not necessarily sure if that's course correction for the projectiles in flight, or if that is how close your crosshair needs to be to the target for it to lock on. I think it would be easier for the developers to implement the second way that I said that, where it would be based on your cursor location instead of projectiles in flight, but you know, I'm not sure. We'll have to play and see. Either way, this is a humongous nerf to the AIM-E. This is going to impact a lot of different players, especially players that aren't as good or have disabilities and stuff like that. This is a little bit controversial in my mind. I think this is a little bit an over nerf. I knew it needed a nerf. Most people agree that it needed a nerf. I don't think this is the way to go about it. It felt pretty good already. I think buffing the other weapons like they did below here with the beam rifle, the Mark, and the sonic boom, and the surefire all getting a buff, that was probably the answer to the Amy being super overtuned. A little bit of a damage nerf to reduce the TTK, but you know, that's just me. That's just my personal opinion. I know everybody's kind of got their 2 cents on it. The beam rifle, which is the sniper rifle, got a big buff, increasing the ammo capacity to 6. 4 shots did feel like too little. It left very little room for error. So getting a ammo increase to 6 is actually pretty good. The Mark II blaster, which is the basic assault rifle, got a projectile speed increase. It got almost doubled from 350 to 500. Awesome buff, much needed. Sonic boom base projectile was increased from 0.2 meters to 0.3. I didn't see too many people using it. Maybe it's secretly really good. The surefire projectile was increased from 350 to 500, and the doctor got a damage nerf from 80 to 70. One big point of concern here that I don't see anywhere on the weapon changes is the double shot. The name escapes me, but the double shot weapon that did damage to ships, just the double whammy, sorry, not double shot, double whammy, didn't get a nerf. That's going to cause a lot of problems, especially with new players. You're going to have a lot of experienced players running double whammies and just gutting new players and completely killing their ships at the beginning of the match, leaving them feeling cheated and giving a bad game experience, especially for new players. The double whammy definitely needs to be tweaked as soon as possible. Equipment here, so some big challenges. The blast can, which was kind of like the Molotov cocktail, got a range increase from 400 to 600. This was 250 to 500, so pretty big, almost double the radius of it. Much needed because almost nobody was using it. And the damage decrease, though, it went from 150 to 50, from 200 to 80. So the damage got nerfed, but the AoE got bigger. So maybe you could do a little bit of area denial with it. I still don't see it getting much action. The drill charge no longer deals 1 heat damage to ships. Not a big deal, but importantly, the drill damage was reduced from 1,000 to 800, which means directly the drill charge is not enough by itself to break the glass in front of the cockpit, but it is almost enough. It means that 1 drill charge and 2 melee swings from Ion breaks that open for you. So you'll see a lot of Ion players still opting to run the drill charge. This was pretty normal already, but still running the drill charge to be able to break that glass open. Next up, we've got the Rock. This was a nerf. The Rock was a little bit overtuned with the changes that you'll see. The second change is a little weird, but the Rock now has 2 charges instead of 3. For those that don't know, the Rock was actually really strong. The Rock was a guaranteed 1-hit kill. I think it did like 150 damage. It was also pretty good in PvE. If you had a bunch of rocks on your team, you could just take the mini bosses and just rip them apart with rocks. So the Rock was pretty good. It goes down to 2 charges, which means that one-shot potential is still there. But the second change, rocks can be thrown at interactable buttons inside the ship, like the coolant and the brakes, to activate them. Like, okay, but only 2 charges? That just seems a little weird. Next up, we've got loot. So they're doing minor adjustments to some close combat ship weapons like the laser ram and the mine layer. They know that people wanted much more heavy-handed nerfs to this stuff. I like their approach here. I don't think these things needed a huge nerf. I think that the game, and especially the community as a whole, doesn't understand a lot of these mechanics yet. Like, especially, you go on Reddit and talk about how the mine layer was one of the most overpowered things in the game, and you get people like, what? The mine layer is garbage. I thought it was garbage. People just don't know the power of these items yet, and they don't know how to, if you don't even know that it is good, you're definitely not going to know how to play against it. So small incremental changes like this is actually something that I really like to see from a development team, and this is solid. The laser ram was reduced from 3.5 damage per second to 3. I still think that's a little strong, but I do like kind of where it's at. The mine layer was damage reduced from 12 to 10, even though it shoots out like 3 mines at a time. So that's 30 damage instead of 36. Still a huge amount of damage. The cooldown was increased to 15 seconds. It used to be 10 seconds. It's a 50% increase to the cooldown on the mine layer. Good? Is it good enough? We're going to have to wait and see. Security devices now have a button that will close all doors instead of automatically closing doors when the boarder comes on board. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think it makes much difference. I think most people didn't really care about the security devices as a whole. With the changes to the armored door now, maybe people will take it more seriously. The fire shield no longer spreads in bursts, instead will spread one at a time. So this is going to slow down how often fires spread on your ship and make them a lot more manageable. Ship cannons, the projectile speed on the shotgun got increased from 75 to 100. The damage to ship parts was increased again from 50 to 75 as well. So the shotgun is going to have a tighter spread and it's going to be better at knocking out components. That's a pretty big change, especially with how common the scatterguns actually are. It's almost always the first thing you find. We have a big nerf to sniper cannon. The magazine was reduced from 5 rounds to 4 rounds, and it no longer deals double damage to hardpoints. There's still a benefit to shooting the hardpoints. It's better than just shooting the hull of the ship, but it's not going to do double damage. So the sniper cannon is seeing a significant nerf here. Handheld devices, the clamp jet is now immune to ship explosive damage, so the clamp jet's not going to just randomly go off. The Star Lance got buffed from 800 to 1,000 damage. That is a huge buff to the Star Lance. You're going to be able to just shoot out the glass. So if you had a Star Lance, you could potentially board a ship, shoot the glass, shoot the pilot, instantly kill both, and be able to just park the ship. The vault key can now be salvaged. Sometimes it's just not tenable to go to the vault, so this is a good change here. They're making some significant changes to respawning to benefit the defending team. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. We'll have to wait and see. Respawning, the time to respawn is now 16 seconds, and dying on your own ship is going to reduce this to 12 seconds. This gives a 4-second bonus to the defending team. Also, if you lose a player, let's say a player leaves your match, this is going to reduce the total fires that can start within your ship by 50%. This is to benefit small teams that want to fight it out or continue playing after they've lost a member of their party. I'm okay with that. That's totally fine. It's really brutal to lose a member of your team. Teleporting home got a big nerf here. Well, a medium nerf, I'll say. The teleport animation, the little spinning wheel that needs to fill up before you teleport home, will now be interrupted anytime you take damage. I don't think anybody's really going to be upset about that. Most people didn't even want you to be able to teleport home from other ships. I think that's huge overkill. This is a comfortable middle ground that I do like. With all the other nerfs to boarding, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. In-lobby menu UI changes, they actually added a nice quality of life feature to be able to remove all of the new flags on all your items with a single click of the button. There's changes to the adventure modes. Unlocking ships happens a lot sooner. They've made changes to the spectator mode, different changes to the field of view, and all kinds of other bug fixes. But that wraps it up for the patch notes. If you're looking for these patch notes specifically, they're in the Discord down below, which is a public Discord meant for more competitive Wildgate players. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for a lot of upcoming Wildgate content. Peace.